Thank you everyone for joining us today. I want to welcome you from BIFMA. My name is Deirdre Jimenez, President and CEO of BIFMA. And we're happy to have this conversation on circularity today with you. And I promise we will not take the conversation in circles. So circularity in product manufacturing has been evolving. It's gone from conceptual practice to now reality. And the panel here today is going to talk about the various approaches that manufacturers, designers, and owners have taken to implement circularity into everyday business. While customers are driving greater expectations for furniture manufacturers in responsibility around circularity, it's important to note that the furniture industry has been practicing sustainability for a number of years, and most recently amplified the topic of circularity in the newly released E3 level furniture sustainability standard and the level certification that corresponds to that. For those of you not familiar with level, it is the sustainability standard for the commercial furniture industry. In the recent 2024 revision, BIFMA proudly introduced level 4, which carries the requirement of a demonstrated policy and a verified circularity program within the company. There are many approaches that a manufacturer can take to achieve this, and I'm going to let the panelists here flush all of that out for you. But before we begin, I'd like to introduce Steve Coy, BIFMA's Director of Health and Sustainability. He's no stranger to sustainability in the furniture industry. He's worked for manufacturers, test labs, and certifiers over his 25-year degree. Took you a while there, huh?
Right.
Career. Steve joined BIFMA in 2021 with a passion to elevate and promote the work that the furniture industry has done in the area of sustainability, but also to elevate and broaden the investment that the industry is making. So I know we're standing between you and the happy hour. So without that, I'm going to let Steve take it away. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Deirdre. And thank you, everyone, for being here. I know it's getting long. And as Deirdre said, we have some parties tonight. Hopefully, you're invited to at least one or two. If not, just show up anyway. You'll enjoy it. I'm going to start by just doing a quick introduction of each of the panelists. We're really happy to have Josh Belzik from Kielhauer. Josh is in sustainability leader and really represents manufacturers. So he's one person. We obviously know there's tons of manufacturers around here, but he's going to give us insight from that side of it. We have Lisa Adams. Lisa and I have known each other for a while now, working on sustainability together. She's with HKS as a principal, so she's going to give us that designer point of view. And finally, and we all know this, most importantly, the people who are using the products that are both supplied, designed to, is Christy Zook from State Farm, and she's going to give us that insight. So we really wanted to curate this correctly to have the right frame of reference as we go through this. And I'm going to start with a very, maybe simple question, maybe not. And we're just going to go down the line, Josh, Lisa, and Christy.
Yep.
Why is circularity important to you? Why are you here?
Well, it's not just why it's important to me, but it's why it's important now. I think the big reason why we're talking about it now is really the opportunity. It's an opportunity to find new ways to collaborate, to innovate in the industry and develop new relationships and ways to help reduce waste, differentiate products, differentiate firms and practices and our companies for really all of the stakeholders. So I think this question around circularity is like the next frontier in sustainability, and it's one that's I think really exciting to approach kind of from a fresh perspective.
I might actually pose a question for the audience. If each one of you were to think about a project that you worked on more than 5 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, think of like a couple of products or details that you put into that space and where they might be now. Because I think we really need to start thinking about the decisions that we make on projects have a life well beyond the first intentions of where we place them in the built environment. And this is important because when you think about the architecture, design, and construction industry, we're actually responsible for about 30 to 40% of the world's waste, which is bananas. That's a statistic that hangs on me as a specifier every day. So the good news is circularity is our superpower. If we just integrate into the decisions we make, having that level of consideration of thinking about how am I going to set the specification up for as long of a life as possible, think of the impact that that could make.
Hi, I'm Christy, and I'm glad to be here and share some of what I've learned. Circularity is important. I think we are all seeing our planet is in trouble, and if we don't change what we're doing today, it's going to have some big impacts for the future. And I really do think circularity is the solution to fixing this. So I think we all need to be thinking about that when we're specifying. And as to Lisa's point, you know, as an owner and specifier myself, we do make a huge impact with the decisions we make. So we have a lot of influence in how we can make this better. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. All right, so first question. I'm looking at the audience. I have some mindful materials friends in the audience. I have some people I've talked to about LCAs and EPDs. And there's been, as we all know, in sustainability, like buzzwords. And one of them, and Josh kind of alluded to this. This is the big one lately, and that's why we're here. So I'm going to start with Lisa, though. When we look at that as kind of a buzzword, let's separate the marketing from the aspirations, right? Like, okay, it's great. We all want to do it. I think everyone would agree with that. But what are some things we should really be keying in on, especially now?
100%. We actually had reduced our top 5 strategies to support a circular economy. And first on that list, oh, there it is. This is our cheat sheet. Feel free to steal it if you want to take a screenshot. But first and foremost, it's really about adaptive reuse. And especially in the space of furniture, if it already exists, if there is an opportunity to use something that already exists, do that. That has the least environmental impact of any other decisions that you could make on the project. So, you know, this is where, as designers, we can scout for opportunities to see what's available on the reuse market. There are amazing, amazing companies out there right now, Reaply, Reseat, Office Revolution here in Chicago, Anew. So these are companies that are actually harnessing the inventory of products that have been let go by their previous owners, but still have a ton of life left in them. And so that's step number 1. Now, obviously, we still need to be specifying new materials on our projects, right? And that's where making good choices, thinking about specifying materials that are carbon sinks. We know things like wood, linoleum, cork, natural materials, those are carbon sinks. They sequester carbon, they hang on to them and keep that from going up into the atmosphere. So that has an impact. Thinking about how we can design for reuse. So when you're specifying a chair, does it have field replaceable parts? If that arm cap breaks, are you replacing the whole chair or are you replacing the arm cap? So look at it from that kind of attitude. And also be selective with what you're picking. Yes, certifications are important. It's great to support companies that have EPDs and HPDs, but also as a designer, I know it's super tempting to specify like 20 different types of a task chair or a side chair, but think about how that owner and that client is going to be able to easily repurpose or reshuffle that deck of specifications you put into their project.
Right, and I would add to Lisa's thinking too, like at State Farm, we standardize on a lot of our furniture, which has been a huge way for us to repurpose things. You know, if I have an office where somebody's exiting, that can go back to stock, and it could even go to another office, you know, across the nation where we might have a need. And then we really look at buying high quality furniture. And we're not high grade, we're medium, but we're really looking for that part replacement componentry and really high quality stuff that's gonna last, because that's really the best story, as you mentioned. So.
Anything you want to add, Josh?
Yeah, and I think one of the areas where we all agree and where there is a lot of overlap is in the furniture, in product design and manufacturing. We, partly through the BIFMA level program, we think about the end of life of the products. We're designing them for durability, for longevity, for replaceability, trying to raise awareness about end-of-life options, whether it's the recyclability of components, the replaceability, what tools are required, trying to make that as simple and accessible as possible. We're always happy to have those calls and to hear from end users and designers who want to find great solutions for the end of life of the products.
Great. Okay, we're going to go with Christy on this next one because we know all the hard work that my background being more in the manufacturing side, I see all the hard work that goes on both the manufacturing side, the designer side. But from an owner's perspective, give us a couple of perspectives around what's kind of gone well, and then maybe some things that are not so well. Because we all know that people learn a lot from mistakes, right?
Right.
And not always intentional, but what can you tell us?
Well, fortunately, I have more good.
That's always better. That's why you're on the panel.
Than negative. We've done some of the easy buttons. We've recycled carpet. We've been doing that for more than 20 or 30 years. Recovered and refurbished our panel fabrics in our system. Recovered furniture. But I think for us, some of the really big wins are our key partnerships. We're undergoing a big campus move right now, and we're partnering with Davy's office. We're able to get rid of some of the panels that no longer serve us. They are able to give us a trade back program so we can get some also repurposed and renewed product. And so those kind of relationships are just really huge wins. We're also working with green standards. They're gonna help us have our own company garage sale. We have so much stuff that we really need some help to dispose of it without it ending up in the landfill. So we're working closely with them. And then I would also say I've got connected with Diane Murata with Kamiko Design, and I've been working with her sustainability team and attending her monthly roundtables. And that is a group of owners and facility planners and sometimes manufacturers too, but it's been a wonderful resource to connect with other like-minded owners like myself who we really need to ask somebody else, hey, what'd you do in this situation, and what worked, what didn't. So those key relationships are super important. And then I do have a story to share from last year that was just a super win. It ended up being more positive than I thought it was gonna be, but we have a campus in Tempe, Arizona of 5 buildings, and it's about 2.5 million square feet, and it came time for us to recover or replace the luxury vinyl flooring in the break rooms. It had reached the end of its useful life. It was getting a lot of sun. You can imagine, full-length windows, lots of sunlight coming in, lots of cleaning during COVID probably didn't help it either. So when we got ready to do that, and actually this is before I even had started specifying new products, so this was well in advance of any of this happening, so planning is really critical. But I basically reached out to the manufacturer of the luxury vinyl and I said, hey, do you have a take-back program? And they're like, well, we don't, but we're willing to help you. And I said, that would be so great, because this is a lot of product. I don't want this to end up in the landfill. And so they, a couple weeks went by and they called back and they said, hey, I think we found a good solution. We can we've got a plant near us, they meet all the certifications, we can burn it for fuel. And I'm like, oh, we can't. I said, I really appreciate your thoughtfulness, but I said, that's just really not a good environmental solution. I said, is there anything else you can do? Well, let me go back. And they did. And like I said, they've been wonderful to work with. So they went back and they found a mill near them that makes car mats. And they said, we think that they will be able to take the LVT, shred it up, and put it into their car mats. And I said, what a perfect solution for State Farm. You know, we insure autos, and we're gonna have car mats. And the other part of the story was the plan was to have the LVT removed, and then as the new carpet arrived, put that back on their truck, so we weren't having separate truckloads and trying to save fuel and that kind of thing. So once they took the flooring back, I followed up and I said, hey, do you have any certification or something, you know, that you can show me about what happened with the LVT? And he said, well, I actually have some really good news for you. He said, our group has figured out how to shred this up and put it back into new LVTs. So we've made a circular product. And this was 94,000 square feet of LVTs. So to just kind of wrap your head around that, that's 4 semi-trucks full, or like 80 pallets. So that was a lot of material. So that was just a huge win and a huge surprise that we were able to do that. So reach out to your manufacturers. If there isn't a program in place, they might be willing to help you, you know, figure it out. So, and I guess the only other thing that I would say maybe about what has been a challenge has been more with seeding. It's really hard. There are some companies that have a take-back program, but a lot of those take-back programs require the furniture to go back to their mill. And logistically, sometimes that isn't easy to do. What we're really wanting is a company that can come to the site and do our chairs right there, so that we don't have that back and forth and that logistic problem, and we're spending more fuel. So those have been some of our challenges, I would say, with what worked and what didn't.
No, it's awesome. Lisa, what are your thoughts on
I
this?
love that story so much.
Exactly.
Because I think, you know, sometimes you have to pick your battles, right? We all want to do the right thing, but we have 100,000 different decisions that we make on a project. And like, to take the example of pick the high volume materials and really focus on those. So think of the moments in your project where, you know, like you're specifying large quantities of things. Those are the items to have the conversations around, just like Christy did with the LVT. So huge impact. In fact, we worked on a project not too long ago where we actually shadowed 2 different projects. And if you remember the 5 strategies we showed you just a moment ago, our main question was, of all of these different decisions that you can make on a project, which one is the most important? And so we worked with these 2 teams, 2 commercial interiors projects, and we tried to do all the things. We tried to reuse doors, we repurposed a lot of carpet, we did take-back programs for ceiling tiles. This was our aha moment, which was furniture. That one decision to work with the client to say, hey, we have an opportunity to use repurposed furniture. Let's try to do that and see what kind of impact it has. You can see that had more impact than any other decision that we made on this project. So that's really our key takeaway is, you know, if you have the opportunity to have a second look at carpet and think about using refurbished carpet, or another thing that we did on this project was we took the inventory of the carpet that was in the open plan area and we chose to move it to some of the smaller spaces. So we did use new carpet in the open plan areas, but that carpet hadn't expired its lifetime. You know, we just did a vac extraction on it, and it looked brand new. And we put those into all the conference rooms. So those are the kinds of decisions like that we have that opportunity and have that agency to make those kinds of decisions on projects that do have a huge impact.
Same to you.
Yeah, and similar to the first couple questions, these are opportunities these challenges are also opportunities for developing new relationships, whether it's local partners to help execute a take-back program, internationally or outside of the local logistic range of where the factory might be located, but also being creative about those types of solutions. Like you mentioned, a take-back program. We've had some great examples of that locally nearby Keelhauer's Manufacturing in Toronto, but to find local partners who could help execute that would be kind of the next step of this process to help get more adoption of those programs. And then other challenges, I think, for us are also part of the flip side of one of the benefits, which is that the furniture and the products last so long, or potentially last so long in their useful lives, that it creates a disconnect between the manufacturer, like a disconnect over time between the end user. And so, just maintaining those relationships and also in developing systems that can track the inventory to help the end user be able to kind of do the calculations and understand the impact, when they need that information the most, I think are some opportunities as well.
Yeah. So much of the product we specify is made for decades longer than the first use that we intended for.
Yeah, so for someone to remember, now those of us who work in the furniture industry, we do a lot of flipping over of chairs to see who made it, but not everyone thinks to do that, especially when they're under the gun on a project.
All right, great. We're going to stick with you, Joshua. From your point of view, realistically, what does it take to support circularity? Like, you just mentioned a lot of logistics, things like that.
Yeah, it's logistics, and it's also creativity. We have some examples where we've built relationships, not just thinking about the finished product. Obviously, we're producing and manufacturing and shipping furniture, but within the manufacturing process, we're internally generating some scrap and some post-industrial waste. So developing relationships to help find a next best use for those materials. So we're thinking about circularity not just with the products, but also within the manufacturing process as well. We have great relationships that we've developed with organizations like the Indigenous Arts Institute that will take some of our leather and textile scrap or offcuts and develop and help use those to create art and garments from in those communities, and also even thinking about the equipment that we use in the manufacturing process. We had a great story this year where we had some sewing machines that had reached the end of their useful life. For us, they were fully depreciated, zero value on our books, but to donate those to organizations where now other individuals are continuing to use those to generate tremendous wealth. So I think it's being creative, being innovative, developing relationships, locally within your industry, but also kind of, across the country is, I think, what it's going to take to really increase the adoption and start to make that impact.
Yeah.
From your standpoint, Christy, looking at your perfect manufacturer that you're going to partner with, we heard a lot of partnering, right? Like, what are you looking for in that?
Right. No, I think, Josh hit on a lot of it. A lot of it, for us is I need you to continue to supply those components for, say, my chair. I need replace something. I need to continue to do that, maybe even after the chair is discontinued, if that's possible. But we are having that happen now. We have some discontinued chairs, and we have a bunch. So they're most likely going to be donated, but we can't repair them any longer. So they're no longer supported. So that'd be huge. And again, the take back programs are huge. They don't always work for everybody based on logistics, and we understand that. And I think, but being able to have access to them and awareness is probably really critical as an owner. And like you said, the long-term partnerships, I mean, knowing, hey, this is Josh's chair, he's gonna help me if I've got a problem, that's huge, so.
Yeah.
And so Lisa, anything you want to add? I mean, you're looking at
I
this.
love this story so much. Like, I didn't know that about Kielhauer, that you guys invest in those arts programs. And I'll tell you, like, a lot of times that's something that is the deciding factor for a lot of designers, because we're constantly comparing product information. Yes, a lot of it is about price point and is it the right product for the job, but there is something quite special about getting behind a product where the impact is going even beyond your project, and being able to go to your client, and say, here's the story behind these 100 task chairs that we're specifying, look at the second life that's happening. And, there's so much more emotion that goes into the decisions that we make as designers. So I'd love to see more manufacturers doing that.
Right, and in addition, I think you're right. In addition to the impact that creates, it also creates a story, and it's a chance to tell a story, or even, even show the story about what's happening with the renovation of that space and the second life that these products can have.
Yeah, 100%. So much is based on emotions. So good job.
Okay, I'm going to go off script because that whole interaction there, I just had this question come to me 2 hours ago
Oh my
about
gosh, no.
conveying that, like, why do people really care? Like, okay, you're a normal person walking into your new office.
Yeah.
How's that story conveyed? Like, if these are so cool, the three of you are all in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But now you're the normal employee walking into their new office. Just a quick, like, how does that get to the people? Is there any specific way? Any one of you?
I mean, I know for all of us, we're so inundated with information, right?
Yeah.
In the digital age, I mean, my goodness, you could spend hours scrolling on Instagram or whatever, but what really hooks you is that emotive story. It's that bit of storytelling and how we connect with each other as human beings. And there's so much bad news and negativity, and we have so much access to all of that negativity, that it's so lovely when you get those rays of hope and, those pieces that really tell you, like, we're really doing right by each other and humankind. So, I mean, I love that.
Yeah, I would agree. We actually, within our company, have our own website where we try to post some things about our workplace and kind of help tell some stories and help with the change management. So we actually put our LVT story.
Oh, good.
Because we want our people to know we're doing some good things, and we want you to be proud to be working here. So, yeah.
And we literally did the same. We created an Instagram story. We sent some photographers along to see these chairs that had been in place. It was a design firm using the Take Back program. They had been in place for 20 years. We saw them, so we took some video of them getting wheeled off and loaded onto the truck, back to the factory, getting refurbished, and all in about a 30-second clip. But showed them then going off to their next life as some donated product. But it became a little viral online storytelling to just help help show the kind of the effort both that the firm was doing with their renovation, as well as the partnership and relationship that Kielhauer had with them over the years.
All good. Yeah. All the good.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about vintage ready furniture. We're going to start with Lisa. I mean, I think you know where we're going with this, but I mean, we know that there's fast fashion. We know there's some things. We talked about durability.
Yeah.
But then we have those items that stand the test of time, hopefully.
Right, yes. And I love this phrase, vintage ready, because immediately my mind went to like the fashion world. And who wouldn't want to inherit like their grandma's kick-ass jacket over buying something that's fast fashion that, you know, isn't gonna last like 3 wash cycles. There is something about, you know, it's more than just the craft of the durability. Yes, that's super, super important. And I think that's all on our designers' radar, because the last thing we want is a client calling us saying like, this door glide broke. You know, we want to make sure that durability is right there at the basis of design. But there's also this idea of like how things stay evergreen, you know, through an aesthetic design eye. And it made me think of like Charles and Wright Eames or the Victoria chair, which got introduced 74 years ago, and it's still being specified. I want these in my kitchen. Like this, and you know, looking at Kielhauer's products, like this beautiful dais chair, like literally this could have been introduced in the 1950s and stayed evergreen till today, and could still be something that's considered beautiful and specifiable, you know, decades into the future. And so this whole idea of our designer and the decisions that you're making right now, I know sometimes it's easy to go for the inexpensive product or something that feels kind of trendy, but really, what I do is I think of, is this a design solution that would have made sense 20 years ago? Because that seems to be a test drive for me to say, like, is this a design decision that's going to translate in 20 years and still be able to connect and be relevant and fit for this client? So that might be just a question to try on for size. And I did have one other thing, I had one other slide that I wanted to share with you, which was a lot of times when we're talking about reuse, like in the fashion industry, you've got a lot of companies like the RealReal, this dress is actually from the RealReal, and Vinted and Depop and all the things that are appealing to that secondhand market. It would be wonderful to see that happen in the furniture space as well. Sometimes the reaction I get is like the ick factor. I call it the ick factor. So a client or a designer saying, but you know, like it's not new, and who sat in that chair? I gotta tell you guys, somebody sat in that chair that you're sitting in right now. Probably more than one person. I've never seen anybody, you know, come around, you know, walk from place to place carrying their own personal chair, right? So we have developed a few case studies, and I included this particular slide because this is the client. Remember that graph where I showed you they reused furniture? This is the project. So if you know, you come to me and say, yeah, but there's an aesthetic and like what's it gonna look like, you can do beautiful work and still tap into the reuse market. This is proof, because I think if I hadn't said that, none of you would have said, ooh, there's something off there, like there's something wrong with that furniture. So I think we just need to kind of get over that stigma and really start to embrace circularity, not as like the special project, but as applicable for any project.
All right. Anything you want to add, Josh?
Yeah, we talk about that all the time at Keeler. We really do. I mean, the company's tagline is design that sustains, and that has multiple meanings, but one of them is keeping in mind those timeless designs that, and for me, this is a little new. I'm you know, used to coming from steel and other manufacturing where there's not such an aesthetic component, but it really is something that is integral to the strategy, to have these timeless designs. Coincidentally, Deus, that you pointed out, won Best of NeoCon for Sustainability 2 years ago. So not only is it a recognizable timeless design, but it was recognized for the other attributes as well. So, you know, this is something that we really consider and take to heart. And I think it's the flip side of the innovation. So we're trying to be innovative about the materials that we use and how we communicate it to the design teams and end users and even our own employees, but also making sure that these are styles and designs that are going to, in some cases, last a lifetime.
That's super important. Celebrate the stories. Celebrate the stories. Right?
And anything you want to add, Christy?
No, just, very much speaking to that same thinking as an owner, that we're trying to select and specify pieces that aren't trendy and hot, getting that classic traditional look that's not going to 20, 30 years from now just be so out of place. So it's a tough line to walk, but it's possible. And I think a lot of it for us too is just, the right, putting the right fabrics on things too, more performance-based. So many people have food and drink with them now, and so, being able to clean those things is important.
Expect it to last.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's the best thing you can do.
Exactly.
Expect it to last.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about logistics, just for a moment. And maybe to weave in another thing that I can't remember, I think Joshua said it, was pick your battles, or maybe Lisa, you said, you probably all say it. But those are two big kind of items that kind of go together. Circularity is big, and I think we live in a world where, oddly enough, it sometimes is very black and white. It's like, oh, the whole project has to be circular. You kind of already pointed out that's not always possible. But give me a few ideas, a few pieces of advice. By the way, we are going to have time for Q&A. I should have mentioned that at the very beginning. But of just like when you think about picking battles, because you'd all like to have vintage furniture and all this great stuff all the way through, but everyone has budgets. So maybe just a couple ideas of tips that maybe you can look at from, and anyone, if you want to start, is fine. If you want a second to think, I'll let someone else start. You look like you're ready.
Sure. Yeah, obviously in manufacturing, we work with logistic partners where we have global supply chains, but for the most part, we're shipping domestically in North America. Kielhauer's manufacturing locations are based in Toronto, so we're very conscientious about what that radius of shipping and service is, so developing relationships to have partners to help service the products, developing local rep, relying on our local rep relationships to not only work with the clients and the design teams, but also the rest of the infrastructure that they need. Sometimes, whether it's their local showrooms, whether them having samples and supplies, and us being able to support that is an opportunity to kind of leverage those existing relationships to do more on the circularity and sustainability fronts.
Go ahead.
Christy, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I love your comment about the showrooms, because I won't specify something I haven't sat in. So having something, and I'm really spoiled being close to Chicago too, but logistic-wise, our company, we really do try to buy American made, so we're not forced with long lead times and some of those issues. But also, as we're working through this campus thing, and with Green Standards and Davies, trying to look at where can we find homes for the stuff that's within our radius,
Decommissioning.
Exactly. We know we can't, it's not going to be a great story to send it a long ways away. I mean, I would rather do that than it end up in the landfill. However, we do need to look at that. And sometimes that's so hard because you still need product on your floor for people to use, but you're needing, to have it refurbished. So there's some real challenges there. So
I want to say make good choices. The little cheat sheet, if you guys had a screen grab of that, and I've been told that there may be assets to share after the presentation.
There will be.
Awesome. I hope one of those assets, we actually developed at HKS a list of vendors that operate in the circular economy. It started with furniture and entities like Davies and Kamiko Green, amazing resources, as well as others that operate in like the secondhand furniture markets. We started that, and then it started to expand into like manufacturers that offer take-back programs and all the things. So if it's not in those assets, but you want it, email me, find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to share it. But this is coming back to like I've lived the dream of being an interior designer for many years, and I understand the pressure of all of the decisions on our shoulders against a timeline with a budget. And I think if we all came to a project just kind of with that attitude of saying, I'm looking for the impact opportunities. You don't need to do all the things. Consult the strategies. Furniture is kind of a big one, and it's such a slam dunk because there is such a huge inventory of product that has not reached the end of its life. In fact, a lot of that inventory is barely used, sometimes unused. So if we have that opportunity to tap into it, I think, why not? Why wouldn't you? I can also say, financially, huge benefit, huge benefit. I have yet to work on a project that opted to use reclaimed furniture that didn't have like a windfall of cash that came back into the budget. So be the hero of your project, use all of that cash on other cool design ideas that got VE'd out of your project, and use this as an opportunity to educate your peers and your clients of like what's possible.
And since you alluded to this, you'll see the QR codes. You can understand, scan them. We're all willing to connect with you individually or as a whole. And there will be handouts at the end that there will be people handing them out right as you leave, so you can pick some other stuff up too. So we want you informed. All right, kind of closing remarks. I always like to do this. You're in charge. You have all the power. Like, that gives you a little bit of blue ocean, blue sky. Like, I guess we'll start with Josh if you're ready, and just, a couple minutes of like, really, what would you like to see change in our industry?
Yeah. Again, I think the next horizon for circularity and sustainability is really building those local and regional partnerships. And also, we're starting to see really interesting advances in technology to help facilitate the information transfer, whether that's, it's leveraging AI and large language models to help recognize and identify the products that are already in place and connect them back with manufacturers, or, rethink spaces and how, and how furniture and manufacturers can be reused, redeployed, or reconnect with the manufacturer. So I think there's a lot of potential there, and I think discussions like this, where we are meeting, we're getting together, we're talking about it earlier in projects, we're promoting it when we meet with design teams, when we meet with end users, that these are things that we can start to incorporate into projects and let those ideas start to flow. Like, the examples about maybe the take-back program didn't exist, but they created it because there was a need. And really thinking, not just long-term about the products and the uses, but thinking long-term about the relationships that we're building along the way with design teams that can count on manufacturers and end users that can count on manufacturers to help with those kinds of solutions. So I think it's just a new horizon, great opportunities to grow and differentiate at all levels of the industry, and I think conversations like this are a great great starting place for that.
Great. You want to go next, Christy, or you want Lisa?
I'll go.
Okay, go for it.
Wish list. Wish list is that we would stop saving sustainability or circularity for special projects. I almost don't even want to say sustainability.
Right.
I know it's in my job title, but like would love it if, as an industry, it was just part of best practices, right? We design spaces to code. We design spaces to function according to our clients' wants and goals. And I think, doing the right thing and the responsible thing and advocating for making better choices and just having that as a best practice is how we make impact as an industry. Because we didn't arrive at this industry to be dentists or accountants. We arrived in this industry to create environments that, make a positive impact on people that are living in these spaces, right? I'm gonna steal a statistic from ThinkLab. And if you guys aren't familiar with ThinkLab, it's super cool. You should definitely check it out. But they do a lot of research studies just on how the design industry creates impact. They did a study that showed the average designer has 40 times the impact of the comparative buying power of the average consumer. Let that sink in. 40 times the impact. P.S. If you work for a firm that is in the interior design giants top 200, 140 times the impact. That is kind of a big deal. So if you think your choices don't matter, they do. This is where circularity can be our superpower.
I love that. I love that. And if it was me, one of the things I'm really liking right now is what the European Union is doing. And I don't know if you've heard about digital product passport, but I'm like, that'd be so great. I hope that technology trickles over to the United States, but it's basically, for me, I'm a 35-year interior designer at State Farm, and maybe I spec'd something 20 years ago and I retire, and now they're going, what is this, and what do I do with it? And I don't know what the manufacturer is. The digital passport concept is to put a QR code or some type of information on the chair, so whoever is in possession of it can go take a look and go, oh, these are the materials that are in it. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is how I can make some repairs. And this is how I can take the components apart and recycle it at the end of the life. That would be such a huge win. So I would love to see that happen here. And then I just wanted to share one more piece, and it's from my Kamiko Green Sustainability, and one of the gals in our group, Joanna Toller. I love her thinking was just do one thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to start with this huge thing, but just one thing. So maybe you decide you're gonna write into your furniture RFPs that it's gonna be BIFMA level certified, or just as an example, or maybe you're gonna figure out that how to recycle your flooring, but just maybe thinking about those things. Just start with one small thing, and then when you start getting that thought process and start studying and doing your research, it really does help in that mindset to be thinking about how you can make a difference, because all of us can. It takes a village. It's not gonna happen overnight, but I love what you said too, because we do have such an influence on these decisions, and most of the people that we're working with, they don't know. They're looking at us to be the experts. So being able to tell those stories and explain to them is really important. So yeah.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, just one thing. Totally agree. I think we always get overwhelmed that we gotta have to execute the exact perfect, everything's gonna be recycled or whatever. It's likely not. So, all right, well, no, I mean, we've heard so many good things. I mean, partnerships definitely were a big one. I think that the fact that picking your battles, which kind of, again, just that one thing. Durability, of course, being important. Can't help but plug the BIFMA standards, which are there to make sure if they're BIFMA, meet the BIFMA standards, they are looking at durability from that perspective. And then I like the open communication too. I think that's the big one. I mean, you illustrated that really well. But it's so important for especially the Kielhauers of the world to hear what's going on all the way through. With that, I do want to thank you before you all applaud, because we'll applaud at the end. But we do have some time for questions. It looks like we already have some questions on there, maybe? Maybe not. But yeah, there's the QR code. And yeah, there is a question for you, Josh. Orange Box in the UK is supporting independent refurbishers with parts and mechanisms to extend the life of furniture. Is Kielhauer pushing such a program? So again, QR code, throw more questions on there, but for that one, Josh, go ahead.
In fact, we're working with some partners now, starting with our local market, where we're doing just that. We're providing them with inventory of spare parts to help them build a base to be able to refurbish more products that are coming back at the end of life. So, as those relationships grow across the country, across North America, and then we can continue to develop that, and it becomes a extension of our own capabilities and a resource for the clients as well. So, I mean, this is exactly what we're trying to build to these ends.
And I'll play a little bit in that one too. BIFMA put together, I mean, it's been around for a while, but we updated recently a guideline for cleaning, a cleaning standard for cleaning, disinfecting, and especially for healthcare, and just how important replaceable parts are for those high cleaning surfaces. So if you can all imagine, especially post-COVID, but even anytime really, there's certain surfaces that more and more manufacturers are thinking of it that way, and more people, owners and designers are looking at it that way. So great question. Got another one, so keep throwing them out there. How do you get your clients to understand the importance of circularity and each of the individual roles within it? I'm going to add just a little bit of that, because you probably have clients who are like 3 years ago were thinking it's all about chemicals or it's all about carbon.
Right.
But now the word is circularity. That's kind of how we started. So I'll maybe start with you, because you're the client person usually.
Yeah, and I totally appreciate it. For the designers in the room, I get it. It's like you jump on our project and the treadmill's already going like 20 miles an hour, so you're trying to keep up. I think the sooner you can have those conversations with your team, with your client early on in the project, the better off you are, the more that you're going to be able to create impact on the project. But I wouldn't use that as an excuse to say, if you come onto the project a little bit later and you see an opportunity, especially in the budget season of the project where things are over budget, perfect time to be like, you know what, I've been just kind of like test driving, the idea of considering some reused inventory, either in our ancillary furniture or in our workstations. And, we've been spitballing behind the scenes, and you can save X amount of dollars if you consider one of these solutions. Are you open to us doing a quick study of this? Usually clients respond really positively when there's money to be recouped in the project. As designers, I think it's also important to still share the carbon story. So if you've got access to EC3 tools or ways that you can measure the carbon footprint, I love the idea of more and more case studies get out there to share with the client the impact that has environmentally, so that they can celebrate that decision as well. It would be amazing for them to share that with their employees and share that with their client base to say, this is how we advocated to do the right thing on our project. So look for the wins.
All right, I'm going to go to the next one unless there's anything else. Otherwise, what are your favorite carbon sink materials for your projects? I like that question.
Wood, linoleum, cork, bio-based materials that are certified. Be careful. Sometimes there are bio-based materials that like the idea of being a bio-based material, but then you find out that there's like 0.01% bio-based materials. So look for certified bio-based materials. There's even like amazing companies like Mafi. I'm going to give a plug for Mafi, amazing wood company that actually makes unsealed wood products that are still appropriate for commercial use. Great idea of wood as an example of carbon sink.
Anything you want to add?
Yeah, another example. little bit of a different way to think about the carbon sink is increasing the recycled content of the products. I mean, obviously we use as much FSC certified wood as we can, which is a carbon sink, but for the other materials as well, whether it's plastic or steel or aluminum, all the things that we use in our products every day to really start tracking and discussing and increasing that recycled content is a great way to effectively reduce the carbon footprint of our products and operations.
Love it. All right, I'm going to go to question number 3 here. In Chicago, 2 of the largest architectural salvage warehouses have closed in the last year. How do we ensure that the nonprofit organizations committed to this practice survive and thrive? And maybe start with one of the people that's near Chicago or in Chicago.
Yeah.
Specify them, right? Actually use them.
Use them, yeah. We have one nonprofit, well, it's not a nonprofit, it's a restore, and we inundate them, literally.
Habitat Restore? Yeah.
So they get more than they probably can use, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know so much about the Chicago, so I'll let you if you.
And this is where, as a design community, we get to create the new norm. It may not be the norm right now, but hopefully if you've learned anything in today's conversation, it's like the more that we create the demand, the more the market will respond to it. We've seen like what's happened in the fashion industry with all of the retailers that are doing incredibly well, consigning in the reuse market. I think we're at the edge of that happening in the furniture industry. We just need to create the demand for it.
One other aspect that in addition to the technology to link these, the supply with the demand, there's an aspect of this that is commercial contract furniture really being repurposed for residential use. And so you're really connecting 2 slightly different end users, customer bases, but one of the benefits that we have is that for the last few decades, there has been this ongoing trend of residentialization of contract commercial furniture. I mean, Kielhauer is designing things that are beautiful, there's not such a distinction between what goes in an office lobby versus what you would have in your living room. And I think, so with a little bit of technological support and awareness for individual users or individual consumers, really helping transition from what is typically B2C type or B2B type purchasing decisions to really a B2C type of a platform. So I think there's some technology solutions that are going to help facilitate that and help connect and link these large-scale commercial applications with individual users and hopefully help keep organizations like that in business.
All right, we got a couple more questions and we have a minute and a half, so this is going to be rapid fire. We're going to hit a few of them. How would you start a conversation as a junior designer with established practices?
Okay.
I'm going to go with the designer.
Okay. Designer of the room.
You're a designer too, but.
Junior designer, use that list of vendors supporting a circular economy, use the top 5 strategies, and be that team member that advocates in your firm that taps a Davies or Kamiko Green or a Repley or a Reseat, and do a little bit of reconnaissance and investigation behind the scenes and say, I see an opportunity here, and be the one to present that opportunity to your team and to advocate for that decision.
And I think it's all about just starting the conversation.
Exactly.
That's huge. So I think pointing it out and going, how come we're not doing this? Because I see some options that we could, yeah.
This is a really nice way to say you just wear them down. We've all had to do that at some point.
Be the squeaky
Just
wheel.
start it and you go, and by the 4th project, you might get, maybe not first. All right, we got time for one last question. It's difficult for a manufacturer to win at Circularity when operating linear business models. Would Kielhauer consider leasing models or FAAS, furniture as a service?
I think this is another example of these new innovative approaches to the industry. Furniture as a service is is one that has come up and continues to come up. And as these, but you have to have relationships to do that. You have to have a designer and an end user who are willing to really be open-minded about a project or about a solution in order to help kind of co-create it. So yeah, Kielhauer is open to it. I'm open to these types of partnerships and relationships. So yeah, I think it's like no holds barred in terms of trying to approach circularity and sustainability, and that's definitely one of the potential tools in the kit.
Well, I want to thank Joshua, Lisa, Christy for being here and giving all your insight. That was awesome. Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause.